Brown, a Homeworks by Precept consultant living in Northern Kentucky. I'd like to introduce you to the American Literature 3rd edition, recently published, and included in the subject kit for this new American literature is the student edition, the teacher's edition, an assessment pack, and an assessment answer key. Let's take a look inside. In the American literature, which is considered a full-year course, there are 5 themed units which are broken down into 12 chapters. It is a historical survey approach, so you're looking at how key events in both the social, political, religious, philosophical worlds were shaping both the writing in American literature and also our culture at the time. If we turn to the chapter table of contents, you're going to see that every unit has a theme. For instance, Chapter 1 is Early American Literature and Era of Change. And then within the unit, the chapters are also going to have themes. Literature of Religious Experience, so under that category you're going to have things like the Bay Psalm Book, Anne Bradstreet in some of her writings, also Edward Taylor's and Jonathan Edwards' The Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. Literature of the Revolution, so you're going to be reading Benjamin Franklin and Patrick Henry. That's how your actual content is laid out, with a theme for every unit, and that's going to cover a particular time period. Some of those time periods will overlap periodically, but it's going to cover a particular time in American literature, whether it be romanticism during the time or realism and naturalism. Every chapter begins basically the same way. There's going to be a timeline that's laid out that's going to go over the time period of what that particular chapter is going to be covering, and then key pieces of literature that were written during that time period. Also, there's going to be some background information. What was actually going on during this time in history? Right now we're taking a look at Chapter 6, which is Voices of Conflict, and this was literature that came out of the Civil War in that challenging time in our history. Every chapter and every story is going to have 3 separate parts to it. There is going to be a before reading section, a during reading section, and also an after reading section. In the before reading, it's giving purpose and prepares the students for understanding what they're going to be reading. Many times there's going to be vocabulary off to the side that they're going to find helpful in the piece that follows. Just words that they may not see on a regular basis or they're unfamiliar with. Every part is going to, before reading, is going to have an analyze part, a reading part, and evaluation part. This analyzing part is going to give them some ideas to be looking for within their reading, to give them a purpose for reading. What actually is going on in this piece of literature? What are some things that they need to be watching for? And that's kind of where the goals for reading are articulated. Sometimes there are also going to be reading strategies or skills taught in this section, or some literary technical analysis is going to be made to help them better understand and critique what they're reading. There's also going to be a short section given on the author, who they were, a little bit of their background, some of their writing, and the things that maybe set them apart in their writing. This particular piece is going to be by Abraham Lincoln, and it's the Gettysburg Address. Once the student has gone through the before reading section and they have a purpose for what they're reading, then they're actually going to do the reading itself. And during the course of the reading, there's going to be questions asked, and those are going to be tagged with a little symbol, and the question's going to be out at the side so that they know what that question is focusing on from the reading. Also, for quick reference, the vocabulary words that were listed at the beginning of the chapter are also going to be listed again for quick reference to speed the silent reading component of their assignment. Once they have done the reading and they've answered the questions from the text that draw attention to the text and focus on those goals, there's going to be an after reading analysis. Many times these are great discussion points for you and your students to take advantage of. There's going to be think and discuss. There's going to be analysis of what they've just read. And we have found those just to be so helpful for even family conversations around the supper table at night on the philosophy, the ideology, and what was focused on during their reading that day. These questions typically are gathered from a broader spectrum of thinking levels and aren't as surface or maybe as readily apparent from just reading the text, but more inference, which helps develop the critical thinking skills that are so important for our students to learn. Every chapter is laid out the same. Every reading assignment is the same with the before, the during, and the after reading. But throughout the book, while there's that consistency, it is just so much fun to see all the different types of reading that they get to do, the different types of artwork that are included, everything from poetry to short stories to songs, biographies. Some of the things that they'll be reading are Patrick Henry, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Walt Whitman, Abraham Lincoln, as I mentioned, James Whitcomb Riley, Jack London, Emily Dickinson, Robert Frost, E.B. White, Flannery O'Connor. Just so many different good writers that they are exposed to help them be exposed to the thoughts of the day, what was going on culturally, what was going on politically, that impacted and shaped our culture and the course of our American history. This book is a very robust course and covers a lot of material, but I am very impressed and very thrilled at the pieces that were chosen, that were carefully selected to reflect what was happening, what has been happening all along in our history, and just very grateful for the biblical emphasis of critiquing the material through a biblical worldview, showing our children a biblical perspective and helping them to learn to be discerning. I highly recommend the American literature, and I think that you will find it helpful in your homeschool also.